So what is the law of diminishing intent? So let's say, for example, you speak to somebody or you read something, it gets you really excited, you're really enthusiastic, you know what you want to do, and then you don't take action. You sit on it, you leave it, and then that enthusiasm and energy diminishes. So that's the law of diminishing intent. So when you've got that energy and that enthusiasm, use it there and then, do something with it, however small, and then build on that, because if you sit on it, you're going to lose that enthusiasm and the opportunity's gone. When it comes to taking action, it can help if you strengthen your resolve and just tune into that part of yourself which says, okay, this is what I can do. If I start it now, who knows where I'll be a few months down the line. So just take stock of how far you've come. And if on the surface it doesn't appear that you've achieved much in the past year, 5 years, 10 years, then look at the lessons that you've learned in that. Because sometimes on the surface of things, in terms of our bank account or our career, it may not seem as though we've achieved that much, but then when we look at what we've learned about ourselves, then it can be a different story. So take into account how far you've come as a person and take what you've learned about yourself into your next frontier. So allow yourself to start with a blank canvas, using all that you've learned through the hard times that you may have been through, and decide on how you're going to do it differently, and then move into your new future with that attitude. This little technique springs to mind. I got this from Caroline Myss, and she talks about, imagine that you could go into a time machine 10, 20 years into the future. Now, from that perspective, look at where you are now. What would your future self say to you in this moment? What advice would your future self give you 20 years from now? So put yourself 20 years into the future and talk to yourself. What would you say to yourself? And then come back, be here in the present moment, and then move from that perspective. Now, there's another technique that you can use which can help you to heal any past hurts, any emotional traumas that you may have from childhood. And I've come across this technique and I've been reluctant to use it. There is a part of our ego that says, I don't really need to use that, and that's for people that are really messed up. I don't need to do any of that stuff. Now, a lot of these techniques are very, very powerful, but you have to participate, you have to give them a go, you have to be willing to give them a go. So anyway, the technique is, and I find it easier to do this when you're lying in bed, you've just got ready to get into bed, You're just about to fall asleep, and you take yourself back into your childhood, to a time where maybe you were confused as a child and the adults around you were getting angry, or whatever it was, and you comfort yourself. So what I did was, I imagined when I was going through a traumatic event, and I just sat there with my as an adult. I went back and I said to myself, myself as a child when I was about 7, and I said, look, it's okay. I'm not going to let anyone hurt you, and you're all right as you are, and everything's going to be okay now, and no one's going to hurt you, and you're safe. You're safe now. Because we are adults now. We know now what we didn't know as children, because life can be very confusing as children, and we're looking up to these adults for answers, and the adults around us may have been confused. And I read something from Nathaniel Brandon, and he was talking about how a child may say to its mum, mum, what's wrong? Realizing that mum is looking very upset. So the child asks, mum, what's wrong? And then mum says nothing's wrong, and then starts crying. And then the father says to the child, oh, look what you've done, don't upset your mother. So the child's getting confused. It's like, what's going on? It's because the adults are putting up this mask, and they're not speaking the truth. The child is confused and bewildered by this. And these are things that we all will have experienced to some degree, if not with our parents, in school and other institutions. So life can be very confusing for children, and for us as children, we may have gone through some of these experiences. So that's a very powerful technique. When I did that, it was just kind of like a newfound confidence, because we all have that child within, and all of our limiting responses go back to childhood. All our neediness, fears, anxieties, a lot of it pretty much goes back to childhood. So just find your inner child, sit with it, comfort it, and just say, look, you're safe now, and I ain't gonna let no one hurt you no more. So try it. Another thing which is good is, if you've got something on your chest, you're unhappy with something that you may have done in the past, maybe something that was a long time ago. It helps if you've got someone in your life that you can share that with, someone who's not going to judge you, that's going to take a non-judgmental view on it. So because everything that we did because we didn't know any better. Yeshua ben Joseph's great teachings was, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So what we did then, we did because we didn't know any better. We were compelled to do it because we hadn't owned it into wisdom. That's why we were compelled to do it. Once we've owned it into wisdom, we won't be compelled to do it again. And if we do it again, we have to step back and say, well, I thought I was done with that experience, you know, but obviously I needed to do it again. It wasn't finished. You know, judging yourself and feeling guilty and shame just takes you in the other direction. So if you've got someone that you can confess to, you know, confession is good for the soul. Get things off your chest. Say, this is what I learned from that. I may or may not be compelled to do it again. The goal is to get to the point where I own it into wisdom. I'm not compelled to do it again. You draw a line under it, you move forwards. Now, if things are coming up, tap on them. I release and let go. I release and let go. Grab your wrist, deep breath. Say peace. So the tapping is very powerful. The tapping will just take the edge off it. You know, if it's shame that's coming up, you know, I release and let go of the shame. I'm okay now. I did that then because I didn't know any better. It's time to let it go. So I hope that some of that was helpful, guys. I'm going to be doing my best to get more videos out, stay in the flow, get on top of my own game, and catch us on the next video.